So today I'm talking with one of the legends in the strength industry, Zach Even-Esh. Zach is the founder of the underground strength gym, and in my opinion, he's really one of the pioneers in popularizing many of the unconventional training methods you see today. Zach's been training for more than 25 years and has coached countless athletes to achieve peak strength and conditioning. He still managed to stay humble and genuine the entire time, too. He's a great guy. Zach, thanks for joining me.
Cool, man. Thanks for an intro.
You bet.
I just can't go with the legend until I'm like Arnold Schwarzenegger status.
You're a half legend then. We'll call you. You're a legend in progress. We'll go with that.
I'm trying, dude.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do good stuff, man. That's it. But I'm pumped to be here and for us to finally chat. I got a lot of respect for you because every time I see your pictures, you're ripped and you're moving heavy weight.
That's what it's all about, man. That's the fun stuff.
Truth.
So I've got some really good questions for you here, I think. I just finished reading your new book, Underground Strength and Conditioning Encyclopedia. It's awesome stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, even beyond just the training stuff, just the details about how you got into training and your philosophies and your strategies. I think that's even just as valuable as the actual training information.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first started training, and what really got you motivated to start?
When I first actually stuck to training, it was a few weeks before 8th grade ended. So I was 13 and a half, and I had tried lifting a little bit, working out in 6th grade, a little bit in 7th grade. My older brother had weights set down in his room. He had the sand-filled weights, which really dates my age. He had sand-filled weights. We had a solo flex. So, you know, those are the late 80s. And my brother was into working out, fitness of all types. He would run our dog 3 times a day. He'd run before school, after school, again in the evening. And he was just into hard training. And I remember in the 6th and 7th grade when I tried, I remember I'd stick to it for a week, maybe 2 weeks. And one time I stuck to it for 3 weeks in 7th grade. And I never told this story to anybody. This is a very funny story. But I remember 7th grade working out. And in this area of New Jersey that we live in, there's malls everywhere. So I go to the mall with my friend. And I remember like a big guy, bigger than me. You know, I'm like 100 pounds. Yeah. He's like staring at me. And I was like, man, I'm scared. I tell my friend, I go, I'm scared. And I told him, I go, I was working out for 3 weeks. And if I wouldn't have stopped working out, I wouldn't have been scared. And I always remember that story of like, oh, man, I would have been so much tougher if I just stuck to working out. I remember I was in my brother's room, like doing one-arm dumbbell rows with like 20 pounds, 10 pounds on each side of the dumbbell. Yeah. But I remember I did it for 3 weeks, and I felt confident. I felt strong. And when you're young, 12 years old, that means stuff to you, especially when you're in phys ed class. Back then we had wrestling, we had gymnastics, and I remember kids were climbing the ropes. I wasn't able to climb the rope. Or when we would wrestle, the other kids were beating me, and the one test was do 5 push-ups. And I remember I did like 2 or 3, and that was when I like didn't stick to like any form of exercise. I didn't do any of that. When I finally stuck to it was near the end of 8th grade. I just started training, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the feeling, the soreness I would get for days on end after each workout. I was doing a lot of workouts from, I must have it somewhere on my desk. I have Arnold's book right here. Oh, God. I was pulling all my workouts out of this. So everything was like 5 sets of 10. I was just doing countless sets for each muscle group and high volume, so I was sore. But I loved it. I was training Monday through Saturday at my house and also in a friend's house. He had a 90-pound or 110-pound barbell set. We used to work out together, and all the kids in the neighborhood would just watch us lift.
That's awesome.
Nobody lifted. They just watched us.
They just watched. You just had spectators. That's good, yeah.
Back then it was you were considered very weird, you know, if you were into working out. It was, like, not cool. It's so funny how things have changed.
It's totally gone the other direction now. It's just,
yeah.
I walk around my neighborhood and I see people other people with, weights in their garage and stuff, and it's not weird anymore. So
Yeah, back in the day, people made fun of you if you were into getting strong or looking big or looking good. It was like you were a joke. They looked at you like you were weird. So when I trained, I was tried to keep it. The kids in the neighborhood knew, but I didn't tell other people about it because they'd make fun of you.
yeah, they make fun of you up until the point where they need help moving furniture.
When things change, once they need that muscle.
Exactly. Yeah. So you started doing with Arnold's training. Obviously, was bodybuilding your passion when you were starting training? That was your focus.
That was the thing. Anybody that I saw or any information I saw, not just books, the older kids that were big, everybody was just followed bodybuilding. There was no such thing back then as you learning quote unquote functional training. There was a couple powerlifters at one of the gyms I started going to. By a couple, I literally mean there was like 3 or 4 or maybe 5 of those guys. And they were kind of, they were the other end of the spectrum of being weird. Everybody stayed away from them. Nobody went on their squat rack. They were using chalk, and not many other people used chalk. So when I was learning training, it was, all of these older, this is Muscle Mag. This is an old one of Arnold. Oh, yeah. But this was, everything in there was bodybuilding. Nothing was about getting strong. So when I trained, I started building muscle. Of course, I get stronger, but not the kind of strength I truly needed. I wrestled in high school, so I looked good, but kids that didn't even lift were beating me. Kids had I was like, why am I training? And these kids, why are they stronger than me? Or why do I get out of breath and gas out? So it kind of threw me for a loop. But bodybuilding was my passion. I think I took to it especially because my introduction to high school sports was all losing. I kept losing. But when you're bodybuilding, you see your muscles grow. You're just competing against yourself. You're trying to get like your abs to show more. You're getting your shoulders, rounder, your legs bigger. To me, that was always like another victory. It was like another pat on the back. It was another step forward. So I fell in love with that, the way it made me feel. And I fell in love with also like the mindset of the bodybuilders about overcoming challenges. So my favorite reads were always Arnold's Education of a Bodybuilder, how he used his muscles and how he used kind of the struggles through training and applied it to the struggles in life to, struggles became strength. So bodybuilding was my first love. And I still, like even now as I'm older, I'm almost 39, feel like I lose muscle much easier. So I'm back to doing more bodybuilding exercises to so make sure I'm never weak. Yeah. keep putting that muscle on. So bodybuilding was my first love, and it's still. I was talking to a guy yesterday who stopped by my gym. He knew me when I was 14. He was one of the power lifters. Yeah. And I said, I still utilize bodybuilding because so many athletes come to us and they have no muscle on their bodies. They're not ready to squat or deadlift. They can't even hold a bar on their back. So I have to use bodybuilding methods to just put the muscle on them, which gets them stronger. And I also think that the big benefit to the bodybuilding was attention to detail with technique. Mm-hmm. Like you do everything the right way. In every magazine, here, like looking at this Muscle Mag, it says like chest workout, back workout. They taught you how to like position your shoulders, how to squeeze the muscle. Those things, as you know, are important. Without technique, you're going to get 0 results. Bodybuilding is like always kind of in my heart.
Yeah, I hear you on that. It's absolutely critical to, even if you're doing, carrying sandbags around and flipping tires, to get that mind-muscle connection and yes. to balance your training, not just to hammer it heavy all the time, but you do need to back off, and you can still train, use the lighter bodybuilding type of training.
Right. Or like what you said, that was a huge topic back in the bodybuilding days of the 80s and the early 90s was they said that mind-muscle connection has to be there. And I explained that to one of my athletes yesterday because I said, you guys are all training together, but some of you thrive, you get stronger, you get bigger, you start, becoming all state, you qualify for big tournaments, you get Division I scholarships. And then the guy who's been next to you for 2 years, the kid who doesn't have that mind muscle connection, he doesn't get big, he doesn't get strong, he doesn't really succeed in sports because he's training hard, but the mind is not connected to the body. It's something that, it's almost difficult to write about in a book or for us to discuss, but when you feel that connection to your training versus just going through the motions, the body produces such amazing results compared to the guy or the girl who, even though they work hard, they're not like zoned in. As Arnold would say, like a bomb could go off when I'm training and I won't even notice.
Yep.
It's and I've really seen that since I was a kid. Back when I was a kid, I'd see guys in the gym. I'm 13, 14, lifting at the gym, and they'd read the newspaper in between their sets. And then I remember when I was 18 and I was more mature, and at age 13, I was 120 pounds. At age 18, I was like 190, 195.
Yeah.
So, I gained like 60, 70 pounds. And I remember saying, like, there's John Smith over there. Like, well, I always used to say to myself in my younger years, why does he still look the same? And then when I turned 18 and I was really understood everything, I said, well, when I train, I'm so in the zone, like I just can't be stopped. Like I just ignore the pain. No, I don't care what's going on. But then the other person just does the motion, read the newspaper, or does the motion. Today it's check your phone. That stuff has to be out. I don't let any of our athletes touch a phone. And sometimes I'll just train with no music so I could, like, you hear your heartbeat and you just really connect even deeper. And I think that's a tough thing for the newer lifters to do today. Because they're so overwhelmed with information, even, their phones, that the focus is just not there. You need some like innate, like animalistic behavior where you just connect to the training and shut off everything else.
Yeah, they don't know how to tune out certain things. It's kind of funny, actually, you were saying that. My dad would tell me sometimes, he was talking to somebody, I just overheard him say, I trained with him sometimes, and he said, yeah, sometimes it's downright scary watching me train.
Because you train, every time I see your photos and videos, you're in I guess that's your basement?
Yep.
Do you train at a local gym ever?
Very, very rarely. I primarily just work out of my basement because, there's no one to tell me I can't do that or it's wrong or anything like that. And even when I was younger and I was just starting out doing some of the crazy stuff that I do, I would still be, just not even caring what anybody thought. Even, I've been training 1 or 2 years and I'd just be doing my own thing, and I don't, I'm going to listen to someone who tells me, I can't even tell you how many gyms I've gotten warmed and kicked out of for just doing deadlifts.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's like this anti-work thing. And sometimes I think to myself that, down the road I say, man, maybe I'm just going to open up a hardcore gym so these people have somewhere to go. Because when the hardcore gyms, that used to be essentially kind of normal back in the early 90s. Once fitness came over, it was kind of like you didn't want to get big and strong like a bodybuilder. So there was fitness. Seemed like the hardcore gym shut down. And people started now doing like what you and I do, training out of our home, out of our basement.
Yeah.
And there's something really powerful about just locking yourself in a garage, in a basement, something that's not like this perfect place, and you're just down there to like battle. It's you versus the weights. It's you versus you. That's something that I would like to see more people do. So they're limited on equipment. You don't have so many machines. You just got a barbell and dumbbells, and now you got to make all that stuff work. And then you're kind of regulated to only the basics.
Yeah.
Which is what works. That's what works.
Yeah. That's awesome stuff, because I think people get so distracted at the gyms. There's just all these shiny machines. There's all these people around. There's all these distractions everywhere.
Yeah.
You're in your garage, you're in the basement, that's it. That's what you got.
That's it. Yeah. My best... When I made this transition from bodybuilding to kind of like old school strength was I was training. I used to train at an amazing bodybuilding gym. It was like the West Side Barbell for bodybuilders. It was so amazing. You could drop your weights from over it. Like they just didn't care. Everything was old. There was bodybuilding photos across every inch of the wall. You just looked everywhere and you were so inspired by looking at the photos. I would think to myself, like, how did these men train to build themselves? It was amazing. And when I couldn't train there anymore, I was there for like 7 to 8 years. I was a teacher. I was coaching wrestling. I was going to grad school. This gym was about 25, 30 minutes away. I couldn't make the drive, and I couldn't handle any of the other gyms. Their crappy atmospheres made me nuts. Yeah. One guy, I think, literally burnt his gym down. There was no electricity in that gym minus a few hanging light bulbs. And I think he did a nice insurance collection, and he freaking burnt the place down, and it was awesome. And I always so mad. So I started training out of my garage when I lived with my parents, and I had a 300-pound weight set from Costco. Yeah. Got a squat stand, and then I had just a utility bench, and I would just prop it up on an incline with my dad's toolbox. But I had a set of 50 and 100-pound dumbbells. Yeah. So if I was going to do side raises, it had to be like heavy cheating side raises. Yep. I was using wrist straps, but I was doing cheating dumbbell curls with the hundreds. Yep. I got so strong just being stuck to the barbells and the dumbbells. You know, if I was doing one-arm rows with the hundreds, to me, that wasn't very hard. So I was doing sets of 20, 30 reps. Yep. And I got so strong, and I put on like a different size than I had developed in the previous 12, 13 years. Yeah. And that really taught me to respect those basics. I was doing squatting, Romanian deadlift. I was doing a muscle clean. I didn't know how to do, any kind of weightlifting. Mm-hmm. My lunges were with the 50 and 100-pound dumbbells. Nice. And dumbbell benching was 50s and 100s. Dumbbell flies, 50s and 100s. It was just, I was so limited, but my results, I feel like they doubled. And that taught me a lot about the basics and about kind of being in your own world, your own little dungeon. And that garage I was in, like I'm in my own office right now. I didn't even have this much room. I couldn't press overhead. It was so small. But, the bodybuilding is always in me. And the minimalist, aggressive nature is always in me. And I think I'm lucky because I grew up during an era where training hard was the way. Like the guys around me who were my mentors, I was 13 or 14, and my parents would drop me off at the gym. I'd be there for hours. I would lift. I would do my homework. Then I would talk to the guys. They'd talk to me about eating. They would talk to me about what it takes to get big, what it takes to get strong. I lived in that culture, and those guys back then, there were no ebooks. There were no different programs. They all learned through each other, through sharing information, and of course through lifting. So it was such a great, unique time, and I feel like those times, they're not there as much. So anybody that could, if you can't find a gym that has that camaraderie, then you need to build your own thing, kind of like what you and I have done. When I went to the garage, you're in your basement, that's what you got to do. Absolutely, yeah. And I love that minimalist approach you're talking about, too. Some of the best results I ever got, I used to work as a sports director on cruise ships. Yeah. And the crew gyms were just, some of them was just like a universal, multi-station gym. And I'd have to figure out ways to work everything on a multi-station gym, even though it's just a machine. I do a lot of body weight stuff using the machine as apparatus, all that stuff. And it's cool. There's always a way. There's always a way if you have this, because you weren't like, well, I don't have my barbell. I don't have my this. I don't have my that. You just said, I'm going to make this thing work for me. Yeah. And I will build my body. When you have the right attitude, you could get big. You could get strong. The attitude is the key. Without the right mindset, like I said earlier, we could be following the same program, but if the one guys are into it and mind-muscle connection, and that inner spirit is connected versus the other guy who's just kind of working hard but not deeply connected, your results, the person that's connected compared to the not connected, your results will tenfold, 20-fold, go beyond what the other person is. The mind must be in it. Oh, absolutely. That's so true. You can take two guys on the same program. The guy who actually cares about the program and doing well with it and putting all this effort into it, that's the person who's going to see results. The other person might get a little something just by accident, but yeah, that's really what it's all about with that. The attitude. Then, one thing I wanted to ask you about too, I really love this story when you were in Israel training with Andre the Giant. Oh my God. That cracked me up when I saw that
Yeah, tell me the story on that one. That's
Yeah, so that was amazing. I never told anybody that story until about 4 years ago. Mark Bell and Jesse Burdick came out to New Jersey to do a powerlifting seminar. So I'm telling them this was the summer before high school. I had been working out for maybe 6 weeks at the time.
yeah.
But even before I began lifting on the regular, I would read every magazine my brother had. So every Muscle and Fitness, Flex, Muscular Development. So reading the magazines, what I mentioned earlier, I understood technique. When they spoke about back training, they spoke about squeezing your muscles and, the position of the body. So my grandparents aren't alive anymore, but at the time, this was the summer of 1989. We're in Israel. We're visiting my grandparents. We're definitely there for 4 weeks, maybe even 5 or 6 weeks. But I remember I get to Israel. I'm into working out. I'm going to high school. My brother was very type A, even, if you think I'm intense, he at a younger age was very intense. I didn't acquire my aggressive nature until my later years. But he and I were yelling at my parents, yelling at my grandparents, if you don't find us a gym, our muscles are going to shrink. You need to do something. There's an emergency. We were freaking out. My brother and I would do pull-ups, push-ups at the playground, calf raises off the stairs. So my grandfather says to me, there's a man in town, and our town was very small, and kind of everybody knew everybody, and he said, there's a man in our town named Andre. Call him Andre the Giant. He's got a gym in his house. So funny, kind of like what you have.
Yeah.
In Israel, they have a lot of, they call it a flat. So he had the upstairs where his house was. Then downstairs was a flat, which was essentially a three-bedroom apartment area. He converted it into a gym. So each bedroom had a universal machine, leg curls, leg extensions.
Yeah.
There was barbells put together. And then Andre had his own small section in the corner. He had these silver squat stands, just upright stands.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ceiling was cut out high overhead for him to overhead press. And then the floor where the weights would drop was cut down. It looked like a half moon. And it's they shoved foam and rubber in there. He could drop the weights. So my dad, my grandfather drive us to Andre's house during the day. And in Israel, at from 1 to 3 or 2 to 4, everything shuts down. The stores, people take naps. It's such a great concept that I'd love to adopt in America here.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we go there and we wake him up. It's nap time for him. He answers the door. He's in shorts, no shirt. He's freaking built like a tank, ripped abs, big chest, shoulders, everything. And my grandfather's these are my grandkids. They're here. They want to know if they could train at your gym. He says, yes, this is what it costs. Come back, whatever, 6 o'clock. We're super pumped. I'm yes, we're going to lift. This is going to be amazing. We get to the gym early. Nobody's there. Andre's kind of warming up in the corner. My brother, I don't remember what he's doing, maybe lat pull downs. And I'm doing bent over rows with a round back. And so my brother's what are you doing today, Zach? And I start talking loud so kind of the other people that are trickling into the gym could hear me. I'm oh, I'm going to talk like I'm an expert. Yeah. I'm going to do 4 sets of barbell row, superset with pec deck flies. Then I'm going to do 4 sets of lat pull down, superset with this. And I'm I'm going to squeeze the muscle. And I'm talking like a real idiot. Andre sees me. Actually, before all this happens, he's training and he's doing things split jerks very fast. He's doing squat jumps with a weight on his back. He's doing hang cleans. This is 1989. I've never heard of weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting. I've never heard of any of that. He's jumping with the weight on his back. He's freaking going nuts over there in the corner, killing shit. Yeah. And in the back of my head, I'm this guy's an idiot. He's gonna hurt his back. He's such an idiot. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna show off and tell people how to train. I start doing bent over rows and my back is rounded over. He just shouts and screams at me, and this is a small room, a small house. He's stop, and he speaks to me in broken English, and it's you walk into the club and the DJ stops the music. Everybody froze. And I'm scared out of my mind. He screams at me. I can't even remember what language. He was from Romania, and he moved to Israel during like the time of communism to escape Romania. He screams at me. He goes over. He shows me how to do bent over rows, and then he like says some more screaming to me, and I'm in like shock. I'm a 13-year-old wimp. I get like all upset, so I go outside and I go across the street. We're in just like a residential neighborhood.
Yeah.
So now I'm on the other side of the street on the sidewalk, on somebody else's sidewalk, front lawn. The gym, everybody in the gym, they're outside. They're like, come back to the gym. It's okay. He won't make you cry anymore. Like, everybody's trying to call me into the gym. So when I told this story to Mark and Jesse Burdick, they nicknamed that the Crybaby Bent Over Row. So, you know, in hindsight, I look back and I say, my goodness, you know, here was the guy, from what I understand, he was a world champion weightlifter in Romania. Basically, you know, all the Europeans were afraid of him. Like he was going to win a gold medal. And the way I found this out was, I feel like it was about 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I spoke at a conference in North Carolina, and one of the coaches was from Romania. You may have heard of him. His name is Istvan Yavarek. He goes by Coach Steve. He does a lot of barbell complex training, jump training. Mm-hmm. He works at a community college, but he had, like, on the side of the weight room, they built like a hill with like rubber turf. So they sprint up the hill, they plyo jump up the hill. He built a staircase of big stairs. So I tell him that I'm from Israel. He's like, oh my God, you're from Israel. He starts telling me that he knows this guy that left Romania who was like the national champion weightlifter for Romania. He goes, he left. I haven't seen him for like 40 years, he tells me. I'm like, holy crap. Is his name Andre? Does he have like reddish blonde hair, 6 foot, built like a tank? He's like, the guy was just like in shock and almost in tears. I get goosebumps when I talk about it. He's like, he left the country during communism. He escaped. He's like, everybody feared him. They said he was just an animal when he lifted. This is 1989. All of my knowledge was about, I'm reading things by like Rich Gaspari. Squeeze your muscle, peak your bicep, do drop sets, do cable crossover. And my goodness, my whole life, I think, could have changed if I would have spent, 30 days training with Andre. They call him Andre the Giant. And I mean, it's just, and what's crazy is I went back to Israel. So I was 13 at the time, and I went back at age 22. And I didn't know where he was or how to find out about him. But I went to the pool in town, and I saw all of his machines, his universal machines, on the side of the pool, like under a tarp, like under a tent, all rusty, and like he either shut down his gym and nobody was able to get a hold of him. So when I met Coach Yavarek, he said, ask your father to find him for me. And my dad used like all his connections, even like military intelligence, and nobody could connect. Nobody knows where he is. He just disappeared. And the guy was just, man, he was built like a tank, Nick. And he's just killing stuff. Even to this day, I haven't seen people lift like that, except on Instagram, I follow a guy named Ilya Ilyin. I think he was a silver medalist in weightlifting. He would do very high-speed jerks, split jerks, like up, down, up, down. Usually you see people hold. He was kind of like boom, boom. He was super efficient. Now that I think about it, he really reminds me of that guy, Ilya Ilyin. But, man, that dude just I missed out on an amazing opportunity because I thought that Flex Magazine was the way to go. Such a shame.
Oh, I know, yeah. It's sometimes you look back and it's those missed opportunities that define you sometimes. It's like you look back and you're like, no, I'm never going to let that happen again.
Right. I think that, like my lack of success of utilizing training to be successful in sports inspires me today all the time. At all the different levels of the people I coach. So I coach high school, I coach middle school athletes, high school athletes. I'm working with Division I wrestling team, and I'm just find myself so passionate above and beyond because I never want them to miss opportunity or to miss a chance to succeed. Yeah. And you don't have to be an athlete to think that way. People have opportunity to change their bodies through training. And, really what I say is, look, there's a right way and a wrong way. That's the bottom line, and you need to move to the right way to train.
Yeah. Well, what would you say is your biggest moment in your past that kind of turned you around from the bodybuilding training to do more of the functional and strength and old-time stuff?
The big change and transition time for me was when I had my second knee surgery, which was my ACL tear. In high school, I was experiencing my knee would like inflame a lot and swell up, and it would hurt. And then around, I think, age 19, I had my first knee surgery, just a torn meniscus. And then when I tore my ACL, I was involved in jiu-jitsu and doing some Muay Thai, and I was competing in jiu-jitsu. And I tore my ACL during a practice. And I remember when I went through right before going into surgery, I was like, that's it. This is war. Like, I'm going to wage war on the wrestling and combat sports strength and conditioning. So the internet was pretty in its infancy as far as getting training information out there. So I started researching a lot of training. I really came across and got heavily connected to the stuff that was on Elite FTS, listening to Dave Tate, Louis Simmons, Jim Wendler. And coming across Louis Simmons, he was always talking about how the Russians trained. And my wrestling background, I knew that the dominant wrestlers were the Russians. So I studied and found as much info about how they trained, came across Dr. Yesse's original book. It was called, at the time, The Secret of Soviet Sports and Fitness Training. Now it's Secrets of Russian Fitness and Sports Training. Came across that book, and those books influenced me. But that ACL that kind of ended my jiu-jitsu, and I wanted to redeem myself from losing as a wrestler. I realized, man, all these wrestlers are training wrong. I would be at the local gym and I'd see a wrestler who would be doing tricep push downs, preacher curls with a cable, and I was like, that shit ain't gonna work. I was looking at him, saying to myself, that's what I was doing. You can't. That stuff's good to put on the muscle at the end. But so, for example, let's say I'm lifting. I'll go and I'll do all kinds of benching and dumbbell snatch and clean and press. Then at the end, I'll do a lot of push downs and curls, but I'll do it in such a way where maybe it's heavy, and I do it as a circuit to build strength endurance. And I'll do that. But most people who are in sports don't know what they're doing, and they're doing all bodybuilding work. And then they wonder why they're hurt, why they're not explosive, or why they don't have a good lactate tolerance. And it's at the highest levels. One guy that I'm working with now, he's pretty high on the Olympic level ladder. He's probably number 2 in the country. But he had a program coming from the Olympic Training Center to put muscle on him, but it made him so sore that he couldn't practice. And then he actually got weaker. He couldn't, it was too much volume and too many reps that he lost strength, and he wasn't really that strong anymore. So even at the highest level, people are still using bodybuilding in the wrong ways. There's kind of a fine line to use bodybuilding for performance versus just, physical appearance.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I see that all the time, too, is you get kids in the gym, they're doing the mirror muscle workouts. They're doing chest and arms, chest and arms, chest and arms. Literally, right. I went into a commercial gym a couple of years ago, and the only one doing deadlifts and squats was this girl who was a bodybuilder, and she was really strong and really built, and she was better built than all the guys in the gym.
Yeah,
literally, she was doing the right things. Yeah.
If you do the right things, then you could do those extras at the end. So yesterday we had a training session, and I got a kid that he started with us a little over 80 pounds. Now he weighs about 145. I'm going to post a video of him on Instagram. So, because yesterday he did box squats with the safety bar. So it was two plates so 225 plus 30, 255 for a double or a triple. He weighs 140. But they started their workout with 3 rounds of keg carries, sled or prowler pushing, and then a rope attached to a sled, and they would do a hand-over-hand pull. Mm-hmm. So they would do an upper body sled exercise, lower body sleds, kegs, 3 rounds. Then he came in, he squatted heavy. They did squats and hurdle jumps. Then they did kettlebell cleans and lunge jumps. Then I let him do shoulder raises, dumbbell curls, the pump stuff. But first, we build them into a badass. Then you could do your other stuff as like the dessert. So we do steak and potatoes, then the dessert you could do at the end. So I make them earn it and do all the right stuff. Then at the end, they can do all the bodybuilding pump stuff that they want.
Yeah. I'm doing some training with my nephew right now too, and he's actually got the attitude opposite to what most people have. He doesn't care about the push down stuff, the pump stuff. It's like he wants to do the heavy lifting stuff. Like the other day we were doing trap bar farmers walks up and down the basement gym.
That's awesome.
And he's like, "Can you put more weight in the bar? I want to do this." And, it's like, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Right. That's the right attitude where they start wanting to break records and push themselves and go heavy. It's the attitude. I learned that long ago. Probably Dave Tate said it, that like you could have the most scientific program, the most perfect program, but if there's no attitude behind it, if there's no passion and inspiration behind it, that will never compare to the program that's really crappy, but there's just a ton of heart and passion behind it. I think I wrote about that in the book too. Like the football team that trained, the Eye of the Tiger, they would always play Rocky. They didn't train perfectly, but I always saw them benching, squatting, seated press behind the neck, heavy cheek curls, but they were so intense and passionate that it built them. They were missing, of course, exercises for their, for their back and whatnot, but that program was flawed, but their passion and intensity was so high that it overcame the flaws.
Yeah, and that's really the key. I think a lot of people, they go into the gym without that attitude. Some people can develop it. Some people already have it, but it's really the key.
You need to get it one way or another. One way or another, you need to develop it, get it, build it, find a way to get it without a doubt.
Yeah, I love what you were saying too in the book about wrestlers needed to go play some football to get aggressive, and football players needed to switch to wrestling sometimes too. They
don't do that enough anymore. The wrestlers, their coaches are like, "Don't play football, you'll get hurt," or the football players the football coach says, "Don't wrestle, you'll lose weight." The wrestling makes them tougher and more athletic. Playing football teaches them to be mean because they're hitting and getting hit. And you could still train. You could still lift weights in season. I think it's a great combination. It's tough because they start playing in the middle of August and wrestling season doesn't end until the end of February, the beginning of March. It's like 7 months. But, what isn't tough when you're trying to be great at something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was in high school, too, literally the sports would start from the moment we get into school, and I'd keep doing something all the way until the end of school.
I wish I did that. I wish I played football and ran some sort of sprinting track and field activity.
Yeah.
Because I would have been tougher, more explosive, and I really wish I would have, and less likely to have been getting injured so much.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it, too. And for me, I actually came from a long-distance endurance background. I didn't even really do the strengths-focused stuff until I was in my final year of high school.
Wow.
And, I mean, I was kind of lucky in that I also had my dad who had a basement gym who built everything out of plumbing pipe.
Ah,
yeah.
Sounds like heaven.
I grew up thinking that was totally normal, building your own equipment, training, doing whatever you thought was right.
That's awesome.
That's how I grew up, so I didn't even have to have that. I read all the magazines and stuff.
Dad was your mentor. It's great.
I actually, I started, inventing stuff from like the moment I started training, and that's.
That's like, you break the rules. You don't need to follow the rules. Me, I was the opposite. I refused to veer from the bodybuilding magazines, and that hurt me because it's a little bit different today. The magazines get experts to write. They get guys like you and I to write articles. They edit the language, meaning they just make sure it's like correct English. But back in the day, the stuff I was reading was kind of like they would maybe, I guess, phone interview the bodybuilder, and then sometimes the writers would kind of fabricate stories or regurgitate stories. And I remember seeing one story. It was supposedly by Vic Richards, who was a huge bodybuilder. Well, back then he was like 280. That nobody ever saw anybody like that.
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, they said the same article, but they said it was by Bertil Fox. Bertil Fox, I think, is on like death row now. He was a huge, massive bodybuilder from the golden era.
Yeah.
But I remember I wrote the magazine. I was like, you guys got some balls, because I had read every magazine, and I always I would remember everything.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 years later, my bookshelves, I remember, were bending from all the magazines. And I remember I wrote to Flex or Muscle Fans. I was like, you guys got some balls copying that article and saying it's by Bertil Fox. I know that shit was from Vic Richards 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, I dare you to write me back. I was bugging out. It's like, I think I was a senior in high school writing them back.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, I remember those stories about Vic Richards. I would eat like 10,000 calories worth of rice every day. And
Yeah. He'd eat like 2 huge like salad mixing bowls. I actually met him. I was a sophomore in high school, and he was a guest poser at the bodybuilding show that the gym was holding. And he didn't lift. I remember he came to the gym and he just rode the bike. And I remember I was just dying to see him train. And he didn't train, but I remember he was just gigantic. He was massive.
Yeah, no, that's, some people just got it naturally too. And
he was a genetic. There's definitely a genetic. There's a genetic. People that have genetics, I mean, they put on muscle quicker and easier. You know, you see photos of him in his younger years. He was a big dude already. And there's guys like that. When I was training at that bodybuilding gym, Diamond Gym, I remember they told me this one guy's name was Johnny Morant. And they said when him and his brother showed up at the gym, they already had 19-inch arms. Like, they were just huge, those guys.
Yeah.
Said that was, you know, they were already genetically gifted. And some guys, they look at weights and get big and strong. Other guys really have to fight to put that size on and put that strength on.
Yeah.
And listen, as long as you know where you're at and you don't kind of make excuses for or against your case, you'll make progress. You know, some got to work harder than others.
Absolutely. You know, I was saying before, when I first started training, I was endurance, you know, I was skinny. I always thought I could never build muscle until I learned what I was doing and, you know, started training. I used the Bulgarian burst system.
Dude, I remember that shit. Yeah. That's Leo Costa.
That's exactly right, man.
Right.
Exactly
he went,
right.
I think, saw the Bulgarian weightlifters, right?
Yep.
The guy, remember Phil Hernan?
Yep.
Yes.
I remember those ads, man. Yeah.
Sure. So what'd you do? You ordered that from the magazines, I guess?
Yeah, I actually started I was doing like the, you know, whatever program for like 3 months and getting really good results because at the same time I started eating a lot more and stopped endurance training.
Right.
So suddenly I was gaining a lot of muscle. And luckily for me, I decided at that point I was past the beginner stage, but I wanted to seek out good quality information. So I ordered this program and I really liked it. I thought it taught me a lot about how to, you know, overtrain, back off, and do that.
That's super compensation.
Yeah.
Dude, sometimes I still do that. Like yesterday, when I got to my gym, I did a bench workout. I worked up to a heavy weight and I stayed there for 3 sets. Then I worked down and did speed work, couple sets of triples. Mm-hmm. Then I went lighter, but then I added bands and I did 5x5. Nice. So I did max effort, speed work, and kind of speed repetition work all in the same workout. That was at like 3:30. Mm-hmm. Then at 8 p.m., I close grip benched. I benched again. And I think it does a lot for the mind. Like, I'm the kind of guy that I don't just train for the physical, but I like to make sure I'm tough. Like, I don't want to start setting limits. Yeah. So then last night I benched. I didn't do a lot of reps, but I think I did like a couple sets of 5, a couple triples, and then a couple singles. Worked up to 275 for a close grip for a double. So that was 2 bench workouts within 4 or 5 hours. Listen, people will probably say, you're overtraining. That's wrong. But doing that crazy shit is what helped me finally break a PR in the bench last year. Yeah. By kind of breaking, you know, the rules, like what we're talking about. Your body will get used to things. And in your mind, if you don't believe in it, your body won't take to it. You have to accept and believe in the hard work.
Yeah,
that's the only way.
Breaking the rules, that's how you and me are both on the same page, man, because it's really, the rules are stupid, you know.
You follow. I mean, there's certainly a way. Like, people think I'm doing West Side, but Louis always says you come to Westside, we might all start with a floor press, but after that, everybody's doing their own thing because those guys learn what works for them. I remember in his earlier days of videos, there was a guy, I think his name was Fred Bolt. I think he said he was like benching 5 days a week. You know, he was just benching. And that certainly goes against the rules. He would bench, he would floor press, he would dumbbell bench. He was always pressing, always pressing.
Yeah.
Or I see like one of my coaches, he's a tall guy. He's like 6'3", 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
He squats every other day. He does a 20-rep set. And I've seen guys squat every day, like that guy Corey from Muscle Farm. He's on Instagram every day squatting, and he put on muscle, and he's thriving. He's been squatting for like a couple months every day in a row.
Yeah, I've actually started doing a grease the groove kind of a squat in the last few weeks, and it works. You know,
it works awesome.
Yeah.
I miss in the house I'm in now. I have a gym in this town now, so I have 2 gyms. But before that, I was finding I was so busy traveling to my first gym that I just set up a power rack in my garage, just a cage, and I had a barbell. And I was doing a lot of grease the groove, squatting, deadlifting, pull-ups, and grease the groove squats is no joke. Like I kept 185 or 235 on the bar, and like a couple times a day I'd get down there and do like 5 reps. At first, your knees, especially you and I are not at our youngest years, we have a lot of miles under our joints, I think.
Yep.
Getting under there, at first your knees are like, oh shit, dude, that hurts. But then your body starts getting used to it, and mentally, you gain an edge, and that converts to your physical prowess. So like with the deadlift, I would keep the bar loaded at, what did I have usually down there? 225, 275, 325. I'd go down, I'd do a couple doubles or triples throughout the day for deadlifts. And my deadlift went up, and I wouldn't warm up and just go down and boom, boom. And it felt great just having that access right in my garage. Now my kids have grown up, and like the garage has been taken over by like Jeeps and bikes and pitchbacks, and I'm like, holy crap. But I miss that rack, and I am sure I will get it again because I love the purity of like a garage workout. I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's what I got from the Bulgarian thing. You know, the body becomes its function. So if you're continuously doing the squats and the deadlifts, that's what your body's going to learn and adapt to. And
I need to see if that thing's out. I got to try to see if it's on eBay or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that program. It really, you know, I had a friend of mine who actually tried the 3 times a day, 3 times a day, 6 days a week version of it.
Yeah.
And it just about killed him after 2 weeks. But I did the twice a day, 6 day a week one for like 5 months when I was in college, and best results I ever got, man.
Those are the times where you could do it, where you're younger and you don't have the commitments with work and family life. But even as you get older, you could bang out a short workout early in the morning and then another one quickly in the evening. Yeah. You know, I find ways to get it done. Sometimes I just do one exercise, but I'll do speed work, max effort work, and rep work with that same exercise. Yeah. So I'll do the squats, work up to a heavy weight, go back down, do speed work, and then use the same weight with the speed work and do like 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 20 reps. That shit's brutal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. Working the same muscle, the same movement pattern.
Yeah, and just changing the effect and the intent of it, you dial in your technique. It's a real powerful way to train. Very simple, but not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now here's a question for you. If you had only 3 pieces of equipment that you could train with, just 3.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of different options here.
Sure.
What would you pick? Whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your athletes, you know, what would your top 3 be?
If it's for myself, I would go with barbells. I'm going to pick body weight as a tool, you know, so being able to do body weight. So, you know, having rings or maybe a climbing rope, but something like that to do some tough body weight stuff. Barbells, body weight, and I could even limit it to just that, you know, kind of like that program I told you about. But if I had a third tool, it's tough because I tend to float. Sometimes I'll do a lot of kettlebell work. kettlebells are pretty versatile. So if I had to do three, it would be barbell, body weight, kettlebell. And if it was for my athletes, if I was limited, it would definitely be kettlebells, barbell, and dumbbells also. The body weight is kind of a given. Like, we always do body weight stuff, but we do a lot of dumbbell work that I think a lot of people don't kind of respect the dumbbell. Like, when I held my certification at other gyms, their dumbbells go to like 50, maybe they have like a 70 laying around. And I tell them, like, you'll never respect the power of dumbbell training. You know, maybe 70 is heavy for some people, but at both of my gyms, you know, the one gym in this town, I have a dumbbell up to 125. The other gym, 150. You know, I'm going to get pairs of everything because we do clean and press, snatches, heavy rowing, heavy farmer walks, floor press, dumbbell bench. Heavy dumbbells are awesome.
Yeah.
Especially for the quick lifts. It's so much easier for me to teach my athlete how to do a dumbbell snatch, a dumbbell clean and press, than to do a barbell snatch, a barbell clean.
Oh, yeah. Especially if it's not specifically their sport. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. You know, a lot of people say they play football, they have to do power cleans. They don't. They don't. And a lot of people aren't even ready for it. You could develop power by jumping, by throwing objects, by sprinting, and of course doing speed work with basic barbell lifts, which are much easier to control.
Yeah.
Weightlifting takes time, without a doubt. It takes time to learn and to teach.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't get with the Olympic lifting is they see people doing it. They see these football players doing it, but they don't really have to do it because that's time away from practicing their sport. You know, you want to develop power and strength. You don't necessarily need to take the time away from your sport to develop that. You can use other alternate movements.
Weightlifting, once there's a solid foundation of being able to squat, deadlift, press, maintain body control, then they're ready to learn the weightlifting drills, but not before a very aggressive foundation is built. And oftentimes that foundation is not even there at the collegiate level. You know, there's kids that show up in college that never really lifted. They were just amazing athletes and naturally strong. You know, unlike you and I, we were not naturally strong. We had to work for it. There's kids like never lifted before. They could do 10, 15 pull-ups. They could do 50 good push-ups. That's pretty damn strong. And they could get under a barbell. They never benched before. They'll do 225, 315. There's people like that, but you got the majority that you're like, do a push-up. They don't know how to do a push-up. They can't do a full body weight squat. Yeah. That foundation should be built for everybody, whether they're a sport athlete or not. You know, I'm a big believer in when I train you, foundation first. Build the base.
I think that was one of the big things that I saw in your book there is how you assess the people who are coming in for the very first time. You know, if they can't do a push-up, then they have no business doing a power clean. Right. No business doing a back squat if they can't support the weight on their back without crushing their spine.
Yeah, or they've got no back muscles. So before we're doing any of that stuff, we're doing sled drags, farmer walks, tons of band pull parts to put the muscle. You know, that's the bodybuilding work. Push-ups, weighted push-ups, all of these simple exercises that build the base. Yeah. You know, I don't skip them. That's like sending your 6-year-old to high school. He has to go to elementary school, middle school, then high school. You got to build them up through the classes. That's how I look at the body. You got to build it up.
Yeah, that's the approach I take with a lot of my programs. I have some pretty advanced muscle building programs that I get teenagers asking me, you know, is this a good program for me? And I'm like, no, it's really not. Yeah, you are not physically ready for this, and your body is not.
They're lost today. You know, I get emails daily by teenagers like questions like, what's better, traditional, conventional deadlift or sumo deadlift? What's better for building raw power? You know, conventional or sumo? Like, it doesn't matter, dude. You just need to have a flat back, do it right. You know, they're thinking one or the other when they should just be doing. They should just be doing. Or
try and both, see what feels better for you.
Yeah. Should I be doing power cleans? Probably not, dude. Like, can you squat 315? Can you do 15 pull-ups? Can you farmer walk 100-pound dumbbells? See, to me, those are the standards I'm looking at. Yeah. I don't want you to be, hey, I could squat 135. I'm ready to power clean. Power clean with what? 55 pounds?
The bar
football. I went to a football team 2 years ago to work with them, and I took them all through body weight, and easily 80-something% of them could not do good push-ups. They couldn't do full body weight squats. When the coach took me to the weight room, he showed me the workout on the board. It was like hang clean, power clean. And I said to him, I go, I know this is going to come off rude, but I was like, your guys need to build a better foundation. I was like, shouldn't be power cleaning when the majority of your guys couldn't do a body weight squat all the way down. They couldn't do a good push-up. Their shoulders were collapsing. Their heads were going down. Yeah. And then he said, well, we've got these 5-pound training weights here. I said, dude, I have kids that curl 75-pound dumbbells. You shouldn't do hang cleans with a 55-pound bar. You know, when we curl, we treat it like a hang clean. Sit back, rip it up, go down on the control. Sit back, rip it up. So they're working their glutes, their lower back, their whole back side, shoulders, biceps, grip. So for me, they're doing a power curl with 75 in each hand. And then that football coach was trying to teach his guys to do a barbell clean with, 55 pounds. It's just a big disconnect. They believe football player power clean when it's just not the case. That's not what those kids need to do.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, get them out dragging a sled or pushing a car.
That's two of the best things that anybody could do who wants to get strong. Carry stuff, push stuff, those are the basics. And you can't, very hard to mess that up.
It really is, and people always seem to find a way.
Yeah, and you know what it is that there's so much info out there that people get confused. So, like, while people are listening to this, like, I hope that they just take the video, share it with coaches, share it with other lifters, so they're educated the right way. I see the stuff that's out there, and that's kind of like the battle that we're in. Like, you've got guys talking about squeeze your muscle, do this. That's important to a little bit of a point, but the most important thing is, what are the exercises we're teaching people to do? What is the work ethic? What is the attitude we're teaching them to go into with training? That stuff's critical. That stuff's more important.
That's the stuff that serves you for a lifetime.
The truth.
That's not just in the gym. That's everything, and that's
exactly.
You're seeking out uncomfortability.
I agree. That's why I always say is that, like, this training should not be pretty. That doesn't mean crap technique. It means it's going to be tough. It ain't going to look like what you're watching on YouTube all the time.
Yeah. It's none of this perfect everything all the time. Yes. Sometimes you're lifting heavy stuff and it's falling over, and you got to deal with that.
Yeah, you're getting in there and just kind of like battling shit out with the training. That develops you as a person. And I always have stories to tell, but I remember years ago we had the college guys back during Thanksgiving time, and another college guy came by, and his dad was there, and they wanted to sign him up for the gym. And I said, what I'll do is we'll bring him in. I'm going to build him up. I'm going to take him through this foundational process of what we do. And Dad was like, no way. He's ready to go now. I said, perfect. Come on in. So I don't argue with him because I know exactly what was going to happen. And he was built and ripped. And I remember our kids were looking at him. He had shorts on, sleeves cut off. He was like carved out of stone. That workout that day was like 6 rounds of trap bar deadlift for 3, weighted pull-up for 3 to 6, kettlebell swing for 6. And I remember the kid, like, our guys were killing them. They were lifting heavy, banging out weighted pull-ups, swings. And this guy was rounding on deadlifts. Then we did Atlas stone loading onto, we had a big barrel. He couldn't lift it off the ground. I remember he was like sitting on the bench, pouring water on his head. He was just crushed. Yeah. And that taught our guys a huge lesson that just because somebody looks big doesn't mean they could perform like you guys. And I saw it in their eyes while they were warming up. They were like looking at him, getting ready to train with them. And I think they were nervous. They're like, holy shit, look at this guy. He's friggin' ripped. He's jacked. Look at us. We don't look like that. Our guys look solid. This guy looked like a bodybuilder, and they were scared of it until they started training with him. They just crushed them. And that's, those guys that train with me, they all get built up through a foundational process of basic exercises repeated on a regular basis. And that kid had just come. The dad was telling me he was training at the local gym. It was a world gym in the area. They don't have too many of those out. And he was not training for sport. He was training like a bodybuilder, and that's why he wasn't ready at the college level. I was just watching a video with Simmons with football, and those guys are squatting, deadlifting, carrying kettlebells, dragging sleds in all directions, jumping, but they build up their base. Before they're even doing that, he has them just doing sleds, just doing wheelbarrows, just doing carries, doing a lot of body weight. He doesn't say, hey, squat. He builds them up.
You got to build like everything, everything's connected, so you just got to
build the foundation. Yes, can't skip it.
Yep. Yeah, one of my favorite things to do right now is loaded carries for distance. And what I do is one of my favorite ones is just a barbell just on one shoulder loaded up and walk for 2 miles and then come back. Yeah. No, it's my neighbors all think I'm insane.
You said go for a walk. I thought maybe 400 meters.
No, I'm talking, I like put 135 on my back on one shoulder, and I walk it. As I'm walking, I'll swing it around to the other side, so I'm never setting it down.
Yeah.
And, do a mile out, mile back.
And your legs and back must get friggin' crazy strong from that.
Oh, huge, yeah. You develop such good stabilizing strength and power, and your calves light up.
Yeah. We had a kid do that. He would finish his workouts at our gym. He put on it was called the firefighter vest. It was 88 pounds.
Yep.
So he put that weight vest on. Then he put a 100-pound sandbag on his back, and he would just walk. He would walk around the gym next door, and he would usually do 5 laps. I think each lap is like 100 meter, maybe slightly more.
Yep.
So he would do maybe a quarter to a third of a mile. But I remember in like 1 month, like his legs and back were so much bigger, and he was extremely strong. He was also, his numbers in the squat were going up, and he was crazy explosive. And he was a football player and wrestler. And I remember just carrying shit. He would just put the vest on, put the bag on his back, and he would just, boom, take a walk.
Yeah. It's been built a great mental toughness, too.
Very much so. Yeah.
That's especially what I found for the distance ones when I'm actually going away from my house. That's the toughest part. It's when you're turning around and coming back.
True. Yeah, it's so true. The training has to be, I believe, it's got to be mental. Granted, if you're just bodybuilding, then be connected with just the appearance, right? But if you're training and you're not a competitive athlete anymore, you need your training to take on a deeper meaning. It has to mean something to you. Otherwise, you won't be inspired. You just won't be inspired to work hard. You'll give up.
That's so true. You'll just, you'll sit on a stationary bike and you'll say, okay, that's good enough for now.
Yeah.
But if you give yourself goals, you give yourself something to aspire to,
Yeah.
I challenge myself to see how far I could get. How
far can I carry this? What kind of man do I want to become? What kind of woman do I want to become? Yeah. Think about something that inspires you. Yeah. Being strong and tough goes beyond your muscles. It's kind of like it's like this, I know people don't like to utilize the word warrior unless you're in the military or something, but warrior has different meanings, and we all have a warrior spirit inside of us that makes you want to work hard, where you want only challenging things. And people need to find that within themselves. Some people just call it the fire in the gut. You must find that.
Yeah. Do you give up or do you back down? You can train that into yourself by training.
I agree. You can build it. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. This has been great talking to you, man. I think
Cool.
we should probably wrap this up here for coming on an hour. But this is
time.
Yeah, time flies, man.
Yep.
And your new book, where can people pick up a copy of that? Because it's fantastic stuff. I read the whole thing cover to cover, and it's excellent.
It's a big book.
Yeah.
It's they could get it on Amazon. They've got it on Kindle or physical. They could get it on Dragon Door. And I guess if they're on your site, you can probably link it up below.
Yep.
And it's in some bookstores. If you want it from a bookstore, you usually have to kind of ask them to order it for you. But it's 400 pages, the physical book. The Kindle book is like 500 and change. So it's a big book. And like you said, it's got a lot of stories of the training, real life stuff, as well as all the different training methods and training tools that we use, the program design. So it's good for coaches. It's good for people that are just like you and I, like you want to learn more about training, and you want to teach yourself how to basically build your body, control your training, there's a lot of learning stuff in there about not just the lifting, but life, how to apply lifting to life. And I think, as you and I spoke, people kind of get that message that I view training on a much deeper level than bigger biceps, bigger chest.
Yeah, no, it's all about training the whole person. And
exactly.
Everything just carries over. So, Zach, it was great talking to you, man. And we're going to wrap
Thanks,
up
guys.
this interview. And yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, Nick.